I never thought delivering camping supplies would turn into a night that I'd never forget. It started like any other job I'd taken since I combined work with my love for the great outdoors. This gig was perfect for me, a young camper turned delivery person, getting to explore the wilderness while earning some extra cash. That evening, though, was different. I got an order from a campsite known for its remote beauty and isolation, a place I'd heard about but never visited. The idea of seeing it under a blanket of fresh snow excited me. I was all in for the adventure, or so I thought. The drive into the forest was something out of a winter postcard at first, with snowflakes gently falling and the world around me turning into a serene landscape of white. But as I went deeper into the woods, the snow started coming down harder, swirling around in my vehicle's headlights, making it tough to see. The further I got, the more it felt like I was driving into another world. The snow muffled the usual sounds of the forest, and I could only hear the crunch of tires on the snow-packed road. When I finally arrived at the campsite, something felt off. It was too quiet. I was expecting the cheerful noise of campers, but there was nothing. Just silence and the soft hiss of snowflakes hitting the ground. In the middle of the clearing was a single tent. Its fabric was glowing from a light inside. As I reached the tent, I noticed a note pinned on the entrance. My curiosity spiked, but that's when he appeared before I could even touch it. Out of nowhere, a man stepped from the shadows of the trees. He was rugged, his face hardened by the cold, or maybe by life itself, and his gaze was intense, almost piercing. He claimed the delivery was his, but something about him made my skin crawl. He didn't go into the tent. Instead, he stood there, blocking my only way back to my vehicle. His demeanor was off, not just protective, but imposing, as if he were guarding or hiding something. The note was forgotten as we stood there. The air between us was filled with an unspoken tension. I tried to keep my voice steady, not letting on how uneasy I felt. But then, without warning, his demand for me to stay shattered the fragile calm. It wasn't just the words, but the way he lunged towards me, a sudden movement that screamed danger. That was a moment everything changed. My heart hammered against my ribs, adrenaline surged, and I knew I had to leave. It wasn't just fear, it was survival. I turned and ran, my boots slipping on the snow as I bolted into the forest. The peaceful snowfall now felt like a maze, each tree a potential hiding spot for him if he decided to follow. My breaths came out in gasps, the cold air burning my lungs, but I didn't dare slow down. Running through the forest at night, every shadow seemed to leap at me. Every sound was his footsteps chasing me down. The wilderness I once loved, which I thought was beautiful in its serene and untouched state, now felt like a vast, threatening entity. My lungs burned with the cold air, and my legs ached from the effort of pushing through the deep snow, but the fear of being caught propelled me forward. There was a race for survival, and every instinct in me screamed to keep moving, to not look back. When I finally saw the lights of the vehicle through the trees, it felt like a beacon of hope. I didn't stop running until I was inside, locking the doors behind me and starting the engine. The drive back was a blur, my mind reeling from the encounter and what it meant. I reported what happened to the authorities, but a cold shiver ran down my spine when they told me the campsite had been abandoned for months. The man, his claim to the delivery, and his presence at that lonely place all added layers to the mystery I couldn't unravel. In the days that followed, I reflected on the night with a mix of fear and fascination. Who was he? What was he doing there? The forest, with its hidden dangers and secrets, suddenly seemed like a different place to me. I was no longer the carefree adventurer eager to explore its depths. Instead, I was wary, aware of the unpredictability and the unseen threats lurking within its beauty. I always thought the forest in December had a certain peace you just couldn't find anywhere else. That's why I was out there, miles from the nearest town, seeking solitude away from the noise of city life. It was just me, my tent, and the endless expanse of snow-covered trees. I've always felt more at home in the wilderness than anywhere else. Maybe because it's where I can hear myself think, away from all the pressures and expectations. The day started beautifully, with gentle snowflakes drifting down the gray sky. The snowfall that mutes the world and wraps everything in a soft, white blanket. But as the day turned to night, that peaceful snowfall transformed. The wind picked up, howling through the trees like it was angry, whipping the snow into a frenzy that blotted out the world beyond my tent. It was a complete whiteout. I couldn't see more than a few feet in front of me. The serene forest I loved so much suddenly felt foreign and menacing. Then, in the middle of the roar of the blizzard, I heard it. Footsteps, crunching through the snow, deliberate and steady, coming closer to my tent. My first thought was disbelief. And out here, in the middle of a storm like this? It had to be my imagination, but the sound was unmistakable. Someone was walking through the snowstorm, heading straight for me. When the figure emerged from the blizzard, my heart stopped. This person was barely visible through the snow, moving towards me. My first instinct was fear. Why would anyone be out here in this storm? But then I heard their voice, muffled by the wind, asking for shelter. They say they were lost and waiting for a friend who knew the way back. Something about the situation felt off. But my fear momentarily gave way to empathy in the face of another human being in distress. I couldn't just leave them out in the cold. So I let them in. Their clothes were soaked, hardly enough to protect anyone from the cold, and their face was hidden beneath a scarf and hood. As I made tea, trying to warm us both up, I attempted small talk, but their answers were vague, their eyes darting around the tent. The more we talked, the more I felt this creeping dread. The cozy space I had created for myself now felt like a trap. The tension in the tent grew with every passing hour. Their behavior was just weird. They seemed restless and almost nervous, and every time I tried to learn more about them, their answers just didn't add up. They were hiding something. The atmosphere became thick with suspicion. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. Under the guise of checking on the storm, I stepped outside, needing a moment to think. That's when I saw the tracks in the snow. They didn't come from the forest as I expected, but from the direction of an old, abandoned cabin I knew was nearby, a place everyone said to avoid because of bad history or something worse. Realization hit me like a punch to the gut. This stranger hadn't just stumbled upon my camp by accident. They had come from that cabin, where no one in their right mind would seek shelter, especially not in a storm like this. Panic set in, raw and consuming. My mind raced. I knew I had to get away. I had to escape before whatever this person had planned could unfold. Without another thought, I decided to run. I left everything behind. My tent, my gear, everything except the bare essentials I could grab in a few seconds. The moment I decided to flee, my mind was racing, but my decision was clear. I grabbed only what I could carry in seconds: a flashlight, my jacket, and a sense of sheer determination to survive. Leaving the tent behind felt like abandoning a part of myself, but the fear of what might happen if I stayed was far greater. The blizzard outside hadn't let up. It was like running into a wall of white, the snow and wind blinding, disorienting me. The escape was nothing short of a nightmare. Once a place of solace, the woods now felt like a maze designed to trap me. My legs ached, My breaths came in ragged gasps, and the cold bit into every part of me. I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting to see the stranger or something worse following me through the storm. By the time I stumbled upon help, with the first light of dawn, I was a mess. When I could finally put it into words, my story was met with disbelief. But as the sun rose, painting the snow in shades of gold and pink, the scene's beauty was lost on me. I was safe, yes, but the ordeal had left its mark. The question about the stranger, their intentions, and the truth behind the abandoned cabin continued to linger in my mind. It was supposed to be the great winter camping trip. My friends and I all bundled up, headed into the forest, excited to see everything covered in snow. The idea was to find that perfect spot, set up camp, and enjoy the peace. The forest looked like something out of a fairy tale, all quiet and beautiful, with its blanket of white. Let me tell you about us. There's me. I guess you could say I'm the one who's always pushing for these adventures. Then there's Alex, who keeps things light with a joke for every occasion. Jamie's the cautious one, always double-checking our gear and ensuring we're not doing anything too crazy. And Sam's the eternal optimist, always sure everything will turn out great. Everything was going just fine till the sun began to set. That's when the snow started falling harder. What was a gentle snowfall turned into a full-on blizzard in no time. We thought we were prepared, but this was something else. The path we'd been following just vanished under the snow, and with the visibility getting worse by the minute, we had to face a fact that we were lost. In the middle of the snowstorm, we saw it, an old motel, looking like something out of a horror movie, with a vacancy sign flickering in the wind. Sure, it was creepy, but the snow was coming down so hard we had no choice. We needed a place to stay, and this was it. We walked up to the front door, half expecting it to be locked, but it swung open with a creak that made all of us jump. The lobby was a mess. Dust was everywhere, and it looked like no one had been there for years. We picked a room to escape the cold, but settling in was hard. The wind was howling outside. The whole place felt off. Then we started hearing things. Not just a storm, but weird noises, like whispers. We found some old photos and newspapers in the lobby discussing the motel, but nothing explaining why it was abandoned. It just added to the creepiness. I couldn't take it. I had to know what was going on. So I grabbed a flashlight and told the others I'd be back. The hallways were dark, and every step I took seemed to echo. It was like the motel was alive. Outside, I saw them. 2 figures were messing with our cars. It was too much. I ran back to the room, heart pounding, and told everyone we were stuck. A ton of bricks hit us as we realized we were trapped in this creepy motel, cut off from the outside world. That night was the longest of our lives. We were all on edge, jumping at every little sound. The wind outside howled like it was angry, and inside, the motel seemed to creak and groan with every gust. We didn't talk much. We didn't sleep. How could we? Every time someone thought they had heard something, we all froze, listening hard, wondering if it was those figures coming back. But nothing happened. It was just us and the storm. When dawn finally broke, it was like a weight lifted. The storm passed, and we felt a bit braver with the daylight. We knew we had to get out of there, back to civilization, and somewhere safe. Packing up, we left the motel as quickly as possible, not looking back. The walk back was tough. The snow was deep, and we were tired. So tired. but we kept going, helping each other along. We didn't talk much on the way back either. What happened at that motel changed something between us. We were relieved to see the edge of the forest, knowing we were out. Once we returned, it was like we didn't know how to act around each other. We were all dealing with that night in our own way. Alex stopped making jokes. Jamie was quieter and more withdrawn. And Sam, well, Sam seemed to lose a bit of that optimism that always defined him. We've never talked about what happened, not really. It's like, if we don't talk about it, maybe it won't feel real. But it's there, in the back of our minds. What were those figures doing? Why was a motel abandoned? We've got no answers, just questions and memories that still haunt us. Looking back, I can't help but wonder about that motel and what happened there. But some things, I guess, are better left unknown.